things like that happen. I mean, you could argue that it was, maybe a poor schedule and maybe they could schedule him on a bigger court. Yes. But again, she's Alexa, that's been a talk and which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever, tennis player from that country, which is big country and is big. Novak Djokovic has finally spoken up regarding Alex Eala's predicament at the Australian Open. And believe me when I say that he did not hold back. Alex Eala, the pride of the Philippines and a phenomenal Filipino tennis sensation, lost in the opening round of the Australian Open. Here's the worst part though. Her performance wasn't the only factor. Djokovic and many others who have been following along believe that the WTA's handling of her match was a major factor in her elimination, and Novak is really calling them out on it. Alex Eala had big hopes going into the Australian Open. She isn't your typical player. Music. She is without a doubt the greatest tennis player to have ever emerged from the Philippines. It's not exaggerated. That is a fact. This young lady has been breaking down barriers, creating history, and introducing Filipino tennis to a worldwide audience. She is deserving of respect. She should be treated with respect. She should be afforded the same opportunity as other athletes of her caliber. However, what did she receive in its place? A court that is smaller. Yes, exactly. Alex Eala should have been playing on a bigger, more prominent court, but the WTA chose to assign her to a lower court in spite of her skill, accomplishments, and everything she has accomplished. Novak Djokovic also took note. He didn't merely observe. He voiced his opinion, and he made it abundantly evident that the WTA had handled this poorly. According to Djokovic, Alex Eala is the best tennis player the Philippines has ever produced and is deserving of every accolade. However, she isn't receiving that respect from the WTA. She is not being treated fairly by them. And regrettably, her first-round exit may have been influenced by this improper management. Come on. Others may say it's only a court assignment. To what extent does it actually make a difference? Well, believe me when I say that it makes a huge difference. The court's dimensions, the ambiances, the crowd's enthusiasm, the lighting, and the surface conditions. Each of these elements influences how well a player performs, particularly under pressure, like during a Grand Slam competition. This is what, however, makes the situation even more unsettling. This is not a singular occurrence. Throughout her career in the WTA, Alex Eala has encountered a trend of dubious treatment, including this one. And you are well aware of what I mean if you have been following her trip. Allow me to recall one particularly heinous instance. Something utterly startling occurred during the Australian Open qualifying round and the first set. Eala was in the midst of a crucial rally. She struck a ball that was obviously in people. I'm being perfectly clear. It was visible to everyone in the stadium. The mark was visible on the court. The trajectory was ideal. It was her point by every unbiased metric. The call-out then came. Cheering. Screaming. Alex a little bit annoyed now. That's the second time that has happened with that same linesman. That's terrible enough on its own. But things grow worse from here. Rather than just giving her the point adversary, which would have been the incorrect choice, but at least a choice would have been made, the officials made the decision to completely replay the point. If you are familiar with tennis, you are aware that this is not the norm. If you're not sure about a call, you don't simply get to replay points. These snorts. Ball is either in or out. Forget about it. You make a choice and follow through on it. But apparently, when it comes to Alex Eala, the normal rules don't seem to apply. This is what I adore most about Alex Eala. She didn't simply take it. Calm but resolute, she approached the chair umpire directly. I know what you're doing, music, she added. The resolve in her eyes and the assurance in her voice. She refused to be intimidated. She refused to be pushed around by them. She called them out on it in the middle of the court since she knew exactly what was going on. What do you know? Alex Eala prevailed in that match in spite of all of that, the dubious calls and the attempts to distract her. She persisted. She persevered and advanced all the way to the Australian Open. Qualifying finals. That is the type of resilience and mental toughness we are discussing here. But hold on, things get even more problematic. Music. Allow me to explain what transpired during her bout with Eala Viate. I'll give you some background if you don't follow tennis very carefully. Among the best players in the world is Eala Viate. We are discussing a former world #1 multiple Grand Slam champion and unstoppable force on the court. Music. It is already a remarkable accomplishment for a young player like Eala to be able to compete against someone of that ability. And guess what? Eala was more than simply a rival. She was performing incredibly well. She was keeping up with one of the top players in the game, matching Swante shot for shot. The momentum was building. She threatened to pull off what would have been one of the tournament's biggest upsets. Then, unexpectedly, a referee chose to question her about things in her backpack. Yes, you heard correctly. Eala was gaining significant momentum and confidence during a pivotal match when an official chose to make a big deal out of her backpack. Here's the truly unsettling bit though. They didn't merely deal with it in silence. The announcement was amplified so that everyone in the audience could hear it. Music. In an effort to degrade her in front of thousands of fans at the stadium and millions more watching at home across the globe, they attempted to paint her as some sort of rule dashbreaker. It is confirmed that you are unable to utilize it. Consider the psychological effects that something would have on a player. Music. You're in the zone. You're facing up against one of the world's top players at the greatest level, and all of a sudden you're being publicly humiliated and called out for something insignificant. It's an obvious attempt to frighten her, to distract her from her game, to cause her to doubt herself just when she most needed it. Professional sports have no place for psychological warfare of this nature. Not at all. And this is precisely the reason why Novak Djokovic's assertion is so significant. Djokovic is not merely a commentator. Music. Among the best tennis players of all time is him. He has 24 Grand Slam victories to his name. For almost 20 years, he has been at the pinnacle of the sport. He has experience competing at the greatest level. Additionally, he is aware of the differences between bias and subpar management and fair treatment. People pay attention when someone with Djokovic's training and background raises awareness to a problem like this. And since everything he says makes perfect sense, they ought to pay attention. Eala is worthy of better. She is entitled to equitable treatment. She should be treated with the same respect and opportunity as all other players on the circuit. The way the WTA is handling these kinds of incidents has to be seriously examined. Music. Court orders shouldn't be given at random. Fairness and consistency in officiating are essential, and young, talented players from smaller tennis nations like the Philippines shouldn't have to fight against bias and poor management on top of fighting their opponents on the court. What are your thoughts on all of this then? Do you concur with Novak Djokovic that Eala's treatment has been handled improperly by the WTA? Have you observed how her matches are being impacted by this trend of dubious calls and choices? Music. Please share your opinions in the comments section below. I'd want to know your thoughts. Let's also lend Eala some support. This young lady has already come a long way, and she will keep rising in spite of these challenges. She has the ability. She is mentally resilient. Additionally, she now has advocates like Novak Djokovic speaking up for her. Give this video a thumbs up, share it with other tennis fans, and subscribe to the channel with notifications enabled if you liked it and want to see more tennis content and coverage of significant topics like this. Together, we can raise awareness of what's actually going on in the sport that we all love. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, keep up the good work advocating for tennis justice.